It's time for MacBreak Weekly as we get ready for Apple's third quarter results. We'll talk about what to look for, what to expect, what might happen. Apple's buying Intel's modem business for $1 billion. Is it the bargain of the year? And a 16-inch MacBook Pro. What would you like to see? It's all coming up next on MacBreak Weekly.
Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
This is MacBreak Weekly, episode 672, recorded Tuesday, July 30th, 2019. Your third slice of lasagna. MacBreak Weekly is brought to you by Worldwide Technology. Worldwide Technology's Advanced Technology Center is like no other testing and research lab, with more than $500 million of equipment, including OEMs like NetApp. And it's virtual, so you can access it 24/7 no matter where you are. To learn more and get insights into all that it offers, go to wwt.com/twit. And by Hover. Make a name for yourself with Hover. Visit hover.com/twit to get 10% off your first purchase of any domain extension for the entire first year. And by DoorDash. DoorDash connects you to your favorite restaurants in your city. Get $5 off your first order of $15 or more when you download the DoorDash app and enter the promo code MacBreak. It's time for MacBreak Weekly, the show we cover the latest news from Apple, and we better get going because I guess Apple's quarterly results coming out. Lory Gill, are you going to be transcribing today?
I am. And Micah actually taught me how to properly transcribe, so I'm taking over for Micah. He used to do such a fantastic job for us, and I really miss having him around.
He's actually a little giddy. He's wandering around the studio because we hired him, and he's a little giddy not having to do that. He's like, oh, yeah. So happy. Well, we'll get you out of here. What time do we need to get you out of here? By 1:30 after the markets close? Is that?
That would be perfect, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, Lory, of course, managing editor at imore.com, where their coverage of the Apple earnings call will be very detailed and precise. And, of course, Rene Ritchie will also be part of that coverage. He is at iMore as well. Hello, Rene.
Hi, Leo. I managed to be so terrible at transcribing that neither Serenity nor Lory will let me do it. So I'm gonna go through the conference call afterwards and then yell about it on video.
Have you guys considered using something like Otter AI to transcribe it, or is that too inaccurate?
I'm using Trint.
So you are using something. So you are using a service to do that. There's some that actually use humans.
I absolutely cannot type fast enough to transcribe myself. I never learned the shorthand typing. I can't even remember what it's called now.
Serenity could. No, that was the odd thing, is you would just see her even live at the talk show at WWDC typing with her blurred fingers.
She paid attention in secretarial class.
Yeah.
Andy Ihnatko. He and I will be eating Subway sandwiches and watching the TV tonight. How you doing, Andy?
Well, I if you don't keep up your Greg shorthand, you lose those skills.
That's
I
true.
spent way too much time between the ages of 9 and 14 at shorthand camp every single year.
I do deeply regret not learning shorthand. That actually would be a useful skill, wouldn't it?
It's a lost art. Not a lot of people do it anymore.
Really? And the court reporters are doing they have some sort of courting keyboard, right? That lets them do it fast.
Yeah.
I'd love to know.
Yeah, just do it all in emoji. The whole thing in emoji.
Okay, that's your assignment, Lory. This year, this quarter, we want Apple's results in emoji.
I feel like Jeremy Burgess could do it.
There will be some happy faces, but analysts are expecting a down quarter in fact, they'll be watching, I think, this afternoon with interest to see how far down iPhone sales will go, right?
It's a low quarter for them anyway because it is as far away from iPhone sales in September. I think we start to get into the real downward spiral on sales before they ramp up again for September. So it's seldom, if ever, a blowout quarter. But now that the phone market is so mature, that's a nice way of saying saturated. It'll be mostly, I think, about projections for next quarter.
Right.
And so where Apple lands compared to what the preconceptions of the market is and then what they guide for next quarter.
That's the key. So this is Mark Gurman writing in Bloomberg. He says, Apple reports fiscal third quarter today, but what people are going to be paying closest attention to is their forecast for next quarter because, of course, that's the next iPhone quarter. The other thing people will be looking at is services, because services are year-round now. Apple had a 16% bump in services last quarter. Anything less than that will be seen as a downturn, knowing the market.
Well, also, this is a good opportunity for them to distract from what is traditionally, as Rene said, a down quarter by saying, and we're looking for, as far as projections, we're looking forward to the launch of our new TV product. We're looking forward to the launch of exciting new technologies, unannounced technologies in the fourth quarter of this year. So there could be, when there's need for distraction, that's when Apple kind of bends its we do not comment on unannounced products policy.
I would imagine people will be listening for Tim Cook or Luca Maestri's comments on two news stories. One, of course, President Trump saying Apple will not get a break on tariffs. He said that on Friday, so there'll be some interest, I'm sure, from the analysts about how that's going to affect iPhone and iPhone costs. That tariff will affect, in other words, the iPhone. They're not going to.
But if they don't say it, he might not remember. I mean, it's a gamble either way.
Yeah, it might be best just to forget it.
Because he's so mercurial that you don't know.
You don't know. Absolutely.
Yeah, so
and he's got bigger fish to fry.
Yeah, and the investors aren't mercurial either. Tim Cook might have to address the idea that for a lot of reasons, not just Trump, it's that a lot of companies are trying to at least experimentally move some manufacturing into the United States, not for a hey America woohoo, but in a way of reducing reliance on Chinese manufacturing. Even if they're moving to India, even if they're moving to Singapore, there's a lot of interest in shareholders in saying what if economic relations with China totally tank in the next 2 or 3 years, not just because of Trump, but because of other indicators? How are you going to continue to be able to manufacture these phones that are still in decline?
And what's wrong with America? Woohoo! Let's bring some jobs back. But Apple's doing the exact opposite. They aren't going to make the Mac Pro in Texas. They're going to make it in China. If they build factories, they're going to build them in the U.S.? I don't think anybody's expecting that.
They should just play the PR game, because all they want is a good press release. So if they said, yeah, we're not going to make the Mac Pro here, but we're moving Magic Mouse assembly to Texas.
Exactly.
Then you get a press release out of it. Everybody's happy.
And everybody's happy. Yeah. Is it really inconceivable that Apple would start making its stuff in the U.S.? Is that just not?
We don't have a trade. We don't have again, I told the story before, but my grandfather came here in the 1980s, and he was hired immediately because he was a metal worker, and they just did not have enough metal workers to make frigates for the Canadian Navy, and they were desperate to get them. And our trade school program just cratered over the last couple decades, whereas China and other countries have ramped those up, and they have people who are highly skilled at making exactly the kinds of things Apple needs made. And you cannot hire those kinds of people in quantity in North America. It doesn't mean you'll never be able to, but we've shown no signs of sort of ramping up.
Had Apple wanted to, they could have. I mean, they, in many degrees, in 2007, when they went to Shenzhen, they had to develop skills, develop machines. They had to put a lot of money into Shenzhen to make it possible to make the iPhone in quantity. But they didn't do it.
Well, but it's important to remember that they had the backing of the Chinese government, who early on recognized the value of the Chinese labor force on the international stage. Whereas over here, there's a lot of lip service being paid to creating jobs in America, but there's more fealty to large corporations who don't want to have to pay penalties for cheaper labor and cheaper manufacturing overseas. Meanwhile, you have consumers that if you have product A that's $50 more, but there is the most brilliantly written tag on it with pictures of happy American workers saying, here's how much, here's where your $50 is going to. We are paying more money for labor because we're doing it domestically. Also, we are complying with United States labor laws. We are also not interfering with our workers' ability and choice to unionize, and we are paying them a decent living wage, and we are paying them decent benefits. This is why this device is going to cost you 5% more than the competitor. They're not even going to bother to read it. They're just going to go for one that's cheaper.
You really think
people are so price competitive.
You couldn't make the patriotic case that, hey, you're supporting America, buy American. I mean, it feels like we could make that case.
I think you could put it in the schools.
There was a time when you could use that, buy America. I mean, I think I remember
people bought American cars. Remember that?
Yeah.
People would say, we're not going to buy a Japanese car. We're going to buy American cars, even if they're not as good.
The global ecosystem has changed so much since then, though. It's just, the world is just a lot different, and I don't think that you can sort of be so patriotic without running the risk of alienating people, like industries in other countries. And so there was, a long time ago, we started outsourcing to other countries, which seemed like a benefit because it helped reduce the cost. But now we're in this new globalized world, so it's even more than just whether or not you should bring those jobs back to the U.S. and support our U.S. labor laws and give them benefits and living wages and things like that. There's so many other aspects to it that I think make it difficult for companies to come back to the U.S. when they left. I don't think it's just as simple as like the bottom line dollar amount. I think there's a lot of little ins and outs that, I think there's a chance that cultural sentiment in the U.S. could lean toward, let's bring jobs back to the U.S. And if you don't start doing that, we're going to stop buying your devices. And that could cause these companies to make these like welfare decisions for the United States. But it really does come from the outside in. There needs to be like a cultural shift that makes these corporations look down and go, okay, this is what what this country wants. So this is what we're going to do to make us look good, to, have good PR and stuff like that. It really is bigger than just what a company decides to do,
I do feel like, though, it's become gospel that you can't make them in America. And I wonder if that really is the truth. Like,
well, there's a couple things we'd have to add, though. Like, I would, if I was running North America and I wanted to make it a powerhouse in this, I would give everyone who wanted it 3 free years of trade school.
Yeah, you need to do training.
Right out of high school.
Sure.
And then I'd have a state, I would take an entire state and turn it into an economic zone and have every factory next door to each other. So like in Shenzhen, you can go from the chassis place to the glass place.
Is it that we don't really want those jobs? Is it that those jobs would go unfilled because Americans don't want to?
Want them. Yeah.
You have.
We want to say we want them.
But the big stopping block is always going to be the companies have to hire these people. You can train people up as much as you want, but so long as they're going to demand a living wage, so long as they're going to demand health benefits and the ability to, if you are
fine,
but I don't have a whole lot of faith in corporations doing anything that they are not being legally forced to do.
Well,
and we can't do it.
Or the market has to make them. The market, it may be government or the market. We can, as consumers, we could say you gotta start making it here. I'm going to buy a made in America phone.
I agree.
You can legislate it like India legislates that or Brazil, that you pay such high duty if you don't make it.
That's why by the way, that's why Foxconn has factories in Brazil and India.
And Wisconsin, but we're not going to talk about it.
No, they don't. They do not have a factory in Wisconsin.
They have a sign that says Wisconsin.
They have coming soon.
They have a state-of-the-art facility that manufactures compliance with regulations.
With other tenants, I believe, still in residence.
Yeah.
The other story that will be, of course, on the analysts' minds is Apple's announcement that it is spending $1 billion, money it has, probably in the seat cushions.
That $1 billion that it could spend on domestic labor and benefits.
Oh, it's going to buy Intel's modem parts.
That's
and
labor.
IP and 2,000, bring in 2,000 Intel employees. That's a good thing. Those are all working in the U.S., aren't they?
Germans need jobs.
Yeah, Germany, the U.S.
Okay. Germany's close.
Well, it was Infineon. So Intel, when Apple first started making iPhones, they used Infineon modems, and that was a German company.
Oh, interesting.
And then Intel bought them.
So
Intel took over the Infineon business. So when Apple ran from Qualcomm, they went back to using Infineon.
It has been like a domino effect from day one. So Qualcomm and Apple get in a fight. Apple says, we're not going to pay you anymore. Qualcomm says, we're suing you. Apple says, we don't want your modems.
We'll sue you right back.
We'll sue you right back. Jeff Williams, if a COO at Apple, makes a call to the CEO of probably Brian Krzanich at the time of Intel and says, you better make some 5G modems. We need them now.
We heard you're making them for your laptop.
We don't want to. Okay. They buy Infineon. They staff up. It's a struggle. It's not going well. At some point, somebody from Intel called Jeff and said, those modems, we're not going to have them by 2021.
We can get to 4.25G.
Yeah, we're not going to have them. Apple goes to court and says, Your Honor, we buried the hatchet. We love Qualcomm, and makes a deal for 5 years of Qualcomm modems because Intel can't deliver. Intel, like an hour later, says, oh, we're out of the 5G modem business. And then Apple buys all of Intel's IP and engineers.
And licenses Qualcomm's IP, so now they can fix the thing that was wrong with Intel.
So that's interesting. You think some of that Qualcomm stuff will make its way into Apple-made modems? Yeah. So Apple has a deal to buy Intel Qualcomm modems for 5 years, but even after the fact, they'll still be given a little something.
They have so it's similar to what they did with ARM, where they originally started getting reference designs, but then they started using the IP to license to make their own designs. Yeah. Here they're buying Qualcomm modems for next year's iPhones, but they also have licensed the rights to Qualcomm's IP, and it's broad range, and they could make Qualcomm-based photography if they wanted to. They have basically rights to all of Qualcomm's IP, but a lot of those are the 5G patents that Qualcomm is donating to Fran, but once you have that master license, it is much easier to get those and integrate those with everything you're doing. So we'll likely see that transition over 3-4 years into Apple modems that use the core of the Infineon technology supplemented by the Qualcomm IP license, but with Apple specific designs. And that lets them go from a thin modem, which they have now, which is sort of slapped on top of the SoC, into making a combined single chip that has all that functionality. Or make special stuff, because the big thing is like Qualcomm literally can't afford to make watch chips. They just bundle old phone chips. But Apple will pay whatever they need to make phone modems, to make AirPod modems. So it'll let them make specific designs no other company would spend money on.
And according to 9 to 5 Mac, Intel had to take a fire sale price for their modems. That this wasn't $1 billion, as much as that sounds like, wasn't what Intel was hoping for this. I think, though, there were other people in the bids, right?
They closed bids 2 weeks before this was even a rumor. So that meant that there really wasn't a big bidding war. Otherwise, they would have basically kept Apple's feet to the fire.
They're worth more to Apple than they are to anybody else, clearly.
Yeah, because Intel realized that their only real customer was going to be Apple. Once Apple aced them out, then they realized that our business is in so many different successful areas. We don't need or have the desire to keep bleeding into a brand new industry that's going to require a great deal of compliance. It's going to require a great deal of new marketing, a great deal of new relationships. Why not just sell it? I don't think they took a loss, but they were more interested in making sure that they have this thing that is not terribly valuable on the open market, but is very valuable to Apple, and making the best deal they could. I don't think they're crying over the deal they made.
No, I doubt they are. Does the fact that T-Mobile Sprint merger looks like it's going to go through, and that is all about 5G, Dish is going to become a new fourth cell phone network and start with 5G. They're not even going to bother with building an LTE network. That also must have put some pressure on Apple to get going with its 5G modem, right? I think Apple would have otherwise sat back and said, we can wait a couple of years because there isn't really a lot of pressure to make a 5G phone yet.
I think their plan was originally the 2020 phone. I don't think that's changed. I think that's when they were hoping they would get.
And they always see, that's kind of contrary to the way Apple works, right? Usually Apple's the last to adopt a new technology.
They will be the last by then. I mean, I think every Android manufacturer is going to have rolled it out by spring of next year.
Which is silly, because honestly,
that may be Google. We don't know.
There's all sorts of issues with 5G. We were talking on Sunday about battery life, which at this point is terrible with 5G.
Glenn Stern's phone melted.
Literally. There's also the issue of 5G not being available, and if it is available in your neck of the woods, maybe very, very expensive. I don't know if consumers are going to be in 2020 saying, "Oh, I got to have a 5G phone."
Yeah, that's exactly it. It's mostly, I think, the biggest impact is going to be for services, and also for broadband companies who want to build up coverage that they would normally have to get pole rights or cable rights for, because it's not just all the problems that Rene's talking about. It's not like 3G or LTE where you can put up one antenna or repurpose an antenna you already have 3G stuff on. You really are going to have to just throw a 5G bomb in the air that does nothing but penetration scatters 5G stations on every single street corner and every single block. They just don't penetrate. They just don't propagate very well. So you're going to need to cover a wide area. You're going to need so many pieces of hardware to make that happen, and you're still delivering features that aren't necessarily going to convince consumers to upgrade their mobile plan. Now, if it's certainly a feature that will get someone interested in saying, well, I will definitely buy this 5G enabled security camera because I will not have to run a special internet cable or special internet service out to this remote location. It can just access a network on its own, or if there's a low latency sort of product that they need to get going on, like a drone project or something that's a little bit more active than what you can get with normal 4G and LTE right now, that's going to work. But the idea of it being like the transition between 3G and 4G, it's just not going to be it. You're not going to be able to get faster. You're not going to necessarily get better TV out of it. You're not going to get better Netflix out of it. And there has yet to be the case of people wanting to stream at a very, very, very high rate to a phone yet. Games might change that, but 5G availability is going to be a problem.
Intel will still be able to make modems for PCs, for other devices, just not for phones.
The other thing to remember, though, is that 5G is it's a huge mess. It is, like Andy was saying, is a way bigger mess than LTE because it's also not really a thing. It's like three different things. Yeah. There's sub 6 gigahertz, which is what's going to be in rural communities and suburbs, which is going to use a lot of existing infrastructure and be just a little bit faster at first, but steadily gain speed. And then Europe has the mid-range sort of version of 5G. Yeah. And then in cities, it has the millimeter wave, which is that bomb, that's a cluster bomb that Andy was talking about. That's going to take, at least a mini tower on every block, if not on every balcony in a major city, just to provide distribution. And we'll probably see sub 6 gigahertz phones, especially low cost phones, especially in markets like China, that won't require as much. That people have slightly better service, much faster. But for the North American market, you're probably going to have to support both. And that was the Ming-Chi Kuo rumor this week, is that Apple's going to go all in with all three phones in 2020
on 5G. Wow. Yeah. So you'll buy one even if you don't need it or can't use it.
Well, the modems will be it's still a generation or two later, so the modems will be way more energy efficient than they are now. They won't require as much RF, and they won't generate the amount of heat that we saw again with Joanna Stern, where she had to basically put it on an ice pack or it was going to melt down to the thermal center of the Earth.
Jeez Louise. All right, let's take a little break. When we come back, I want to talk about an experience I had. I turned on Bluetooth as I drove around town the other day. I was trying to pair my phone to my helmet, and I was. This is a great, as one does. This is a great experiment, though. Just to get on a bike or walk around with scanning for Bluetooth, you will be blown away by all the things you can join in your neighborhood. But first, and we'll talk a little bit about why that is. But first, a word from our sponsor, Worldwide Technology, WWT. These guys have been around for at least a decade. I know there's many people who have been customers for that whole time. In fact, about 10 years ago, I think they saw an opportunity. They're a great enterprise integrator, vendor. Their engineers work closely with their clients to help businesses integrate technology into their business. And of course, this has been the most amazing decade for that. And I think they saw early on that there was going to be a need for a place to put together different technologies to test them. That's when they started building their Advanced Technology Center. There was already a gap in the market. Ziff Davis had its big testing center in Foster City, but they shut that down. There was nobody doing this. So they started building the ATC 10 years ago, and now it has grown like something else. Like no other testing and research lab in the world, more than $500 million in equipment. They say Silicon Valley has come to St. Louis, their ATC headquarters. Hundreds of OEMs, the big guys like Cisco and NetApp and VMware, emerging disruptors like Tanium and Equinix and Expanse. You can, if you're in the market, if you're a business and you're looking to install new technologies and you want to know how's this going to work, how's it going to work with my existing technologies, WWT and their Advanced Technology Center is there for you. Their own engineers have been using this to test environments, to spin up proofs of concept, to create pilots. They have a sandbox there. Customers can look at how it works, confidently select the best solution. But here's the best part. Now you can use it too. They offer the ATC Lab as a service, a dedicated lab space within the Advanced Technology Center where you can perform programmatic testing. If you're in the market for something from NetApp or Cisco or VMware, or you've got existing products, you want to see how other products like Cisco's Umbrella will interact with it, you can do that right in the lab. And it's virtual. You don't have to go to St. Louis. You can take advantage of the ATC's benefits from anywhere in the world 24/7. This is such a fantastic product. WWT's engineers work in these labs every day. They beta test new equipment. They build reference architectures, custom integrations to help their customers make decisions and see results with much less investment, and now you can too. Later this summer, Worldwide Tech is going to launch a new digital platform with a hands-on access to more than 200 lab environments. If you go to this page, wwt.com/twit, you can sign up for pre-launch access. You can try it right now. Their new on-demand lab platform, really, this is something much needed in the world, and I commend WWT for putting this together. Worldwide technology simplifies the complex. wwt.com/twit. wwt.com/twit. WWT delivers business and technology outcomes all over the world, and now you can do it without leaving your office. wwt.com/twit for pre-launch access. Actually, I did this little ride around on my bicycle. I have a Bluetooth-enabled helmet, and my iPhone hadn't been paired to it yet. So foolishly, instead of stopping, pairing it, and then going on the ride, I'm on the ride. I want to pair it because I got to hear the Harry Potter sounds in my helmet.
Of course.
So I turned on scan for, as one does, the scan for Bluetooth, and I pressed the button on the helmet that says pairing. I couldn't believe it. I could see people's stereo systems. There's cars. I could see their refrigerators, their microwave. By the end of a 1 mile route, I had hundreds of Bluetooth devices on my phone that I could have joined. Well, now I just read this article shortly after I got back from Hexway. Apple Blee, we're talking about Bluetooth LE. Everyone knows what happens on your iPhone, and this is Apple's intent. It's beaconing, basically. In fact, didn't we read this or talk about this a few months ago? We were kind of surprised because Apple effectively said, "Oh yeah, by the way, your iPad and your MacBook are beacons." Remember that beacon thing?
For the Find My Mac,
they're beacons. Yeah, that's when they announced WWDC Find My. Well, yeah, it's beaconing, and it's sending a lot of information. Basically, if Bluetooth is on your Apple device, this will, by the way, prompt you to turn it off unless you need it. Nearly everyone nearby can see the current status of your device, get info about your battery, yes, device name, your Wi-Fi status, your buffer availability, the version of your OS, and maybe even your phone number. Now, it takes a little work to get the phone number because that's hashed. But you can create a hash database, run a script. Anytime somebody turns on AirDrop, then you got them, by the way. Wow. This is not a bug. This is a feature.
Yeah. It's convenience over security.
Yeah, and for me, it's a big problem, and we have another story that we might get to today. I'm sure that this is why I really cringe when Apple really tries to play the card of, "Hey, we're different from other companies. They don't care about security, but when you have an iPhone, you could be absolutely sure that that phone is absolutely secure and nobody can get into it. And with your privacy on your iPhone, it stays on your iPhone." And then, okay, let's set a Google News alert for Apple device security fail and see how many emails I get on that on a weekly basis. And this isn't a tragedy, and this isn't a scandal that we're finding out the stuff about, or we're being reminded in this case about Bluetooth being Bluetooth. and features that cannot possibly work otherwise. If you want to get your phone back, if you want to get your
they
your,
can't.
your
Wait a minute. I should say they can work otherwise. Android does not do this with no noticeable drop in convenience. So you don't have to do this. It's this Bluetooth LE thing that, remember, for a long time, pairing was a pain in the ass, right? You had to turn on pairing on one thing, you had to press a button. But Bluetooth LE eliminated all that, right? You could just see, you could see it, and that's what's happened. Is Bluetooth LE, which
broadcasts for discoverability.
It's broadcasting. Android made the choice not to do that, so I don't think you have to do that. But I think you nail it, Rene, when you say it's trading convenience over security.
Channeling my inner Steve Gibson.
Yeah.
I was on the airplane a couple weeks ago and using my phone pairing. I think I was wearing my AirPods, and someone else's AirPods on the plane popped up on my screen to pair with it. I thought that was really weird and confusing. I should say, what if I would have tried to?
You could have played music into their AirPods, is what you could have done. I mean, it's not the end of the world, but it's not a good thing either. Windows does this too. Android has chosen not to. It is not just your iPhone. It is your Apple Watch. It is your AirPods. It is your MacBook. All of these do this. This is researchers at Boston University called this a security flaw and pointed it out in Windows, iOS, and macOS. Android does. It's really the difference between pushing and polling.
Yeah.
BLE uses public, non-encrypted advertising channels to announce their presence to nearby devices, and those channels can carry a lot of information. It doesn't work on Android because Android doesn't poll in that way. They don't. It does do advertising messages, but there's never any manufacturing-specific data or device-identifying data in there, according to the BU researchers. So, I don't know what the answer is. If you're not using Bluetooth, absolutely turn it off. I presume that turns off Bluetooth LE as well as everything else.
Yes. I mean, I would prefer they didn't do it, but then, like you said, it goes back to me. Like right now, I'm going to use that M word, magical, which I hate, but it does seem that way because the device is basically going, hey, here I am. I'm super easy to join. Just press that button and you'll join up. I'm going to go, here's a handshake. I'm handshaking you. Now everything's done. And it makes you really just press a button and it's done. And when you take that away, you end up futzing with the connection at both ends, which is fine for me. I would absolutely make that trade in a heartbeat, give zero information and make me work to connect. But I also realize that my preferences aren't everybody's preferences.
There is a kind of a red flag. It's really convenient, but when we were on vacation last week, by the way, thank you guys for who hosted? Did you host?
Andy was brilliant.
Andy, thank you. I should have thanked you for doing the job. I appreciate it. But while I was on vacation, there's a Wi-Fi there, and I paired my phone to it, and then lo and behold, my MacBook and my iPad automatically already know the password to the Bluetooth. That's great. That's really convenient. Except if you think about it. What it means is it's being
like a sense.
Go ahead.
There's this idea of, and I don't want to use the word fear mongering, but this is different than somebody gaining access to your personal data. Now, I agree that
your phone number is your personal data.
But we used to put our phone numbers in a phone book. It used to not be a problem that the world had access to my phone number. I was excited the first time I moved out on my own and got my phone number in the phone book. So even the idea that anyone could have access to it, that's not that big of a deal in the sort of grand scheme of things when you relate it to something more personal, like your other personal data, like access to things right on your iPhone, your credit card numbers and things like that. So you do have to kind of balance this out a little bit, that it is less secure, and Apple stands on its soapbox that it's so secure, but then they have this special convenient thing that makes it less secure. So you're 100% right. But there's also kind of this idea that we have to keep in mind is that there's some things that it's not that big of a deal, that it's not that secure. And,
I agree. Secure enough is often secure. But
it's sometimes you really do have to take the stance that I don't know what this information could be used for against me, but I'm going to assume that someone can use this against me, and so I want to be able to turn that off. In terms of a phone number, there's a big reason why so many services want you to attach a phone number to your account for safety and security and for verification of your account. That is true, but the thing is, companies know that the one piece of data that they can ask for that doesn't change from address to address, from time of life to time of life is your cell phone number. Like I've had several addresses since the 90s. If you've been tracking me on lots of different pieces of data that is accessible, you will probably have gotten all those stuff out of date. But my cell phone number has remained the same since the 1990s, and that's why they want it. And now that we have situations where you have companies that realize the value of just having a truck or a car just driving around like a Google Street View car, collecting as much data from open Wi-Fi, from Bluetooth, from any open channel as they can, because at some point, if a government agency thinks that you're harboring illegal aliens or illegal immigrants and wants to see, well, okay, where was Lory yesterday? And they needed a court order to get it through the most direct means, through the phone company, but they could simply ask a private contractor who's, again, sending those cars around to do things like all that stuff and also scan license plates that are parked on the sides of streets. Where is it likely that Lory Gill is going to be at 10 a.m. on a Thursday? And because they were able to ping your phone number, they got it. They can sell that information. So I'm not.
We're giving all that information away in all the other things that we do too, though. So when you say, and again, like I am agreeing with all of this, but there's also other things in the world that we're doing that with. The fact that I walk down the street to go get a cup of coffee at 10 o'clock in the morning, somebody already knows that, and it has nothing to do
thanks
with
to face recognition, you're in a
database. So to sort of like center in on Bluetooth LE when we have given up our privacy all over the world, or it's been taken from us, depending on the angle that you want to look at it. It's much bigger than just Bluetooth. It goes beyond our phones. So to kind of like, I guess I just think about like people listening to this right now who might be freaking out and who might be like, I got to turn off Bluetooth on my phone. I'm not saying don't do it. I'm just saying there's also a lot more out there in the world that we're not paying attention to.
Well, but also if you don't have to do it, in other words, nobody is saying, oh, Android, I hate how Bluetooth pairing on Android is. You don't have to send that information out. So I think this is a little pressure on Apple to maybe consider what it's sending out.
It's also weird because when you look at when you look at the white paper and you see what they do architecturally. So for example, when they broadcast for AirDrop, they don't send any personal information. They only send a unique identifier that if you already have my information, then displays the rest of it to you. So I have to look more into this, but there has to be I don't want to concede all the convenience, because I recognize for a lot of mainstream people that convenience is what allows them to use technology in the first place. But I also don't want to concede that you can lock this stuff down way better. And they did that with Wi-Fi. Remember, like stores were tracking us by just the Wi-Fi ping off of us walking around. Right. And so Apple started faking the Wi-Fi pin.
I did, yes, and they do that. They rotate the MAC address and stuff. They do some things right, things that Android does not do right.
Yeah, and I'm not the engineer in charge of implementing it, so it's easy for me to say. But I do believe they can come up with smart ways of fixing this without disabling it.
As long as we're talking about this, let's pile on, because the folks at this is the other story Andrew wanted to talk about. The folks at Google have pinpointed 5 flaws in Apple's iMessage software. Apple calls it the Messages software, but I see the BBC has not got that memo yet. That could make its devices vulnerable to attack. These are problems that require no intervention on the part of the user, and that is always concerning. We don't know the details. There's a 6th problem. We don't know the details of it because it's the 90 days for disclosure aren't up, and they're hoping Apple will fix this before the 0-day Google Zero team reveals.
It sounded like malformed messages would do some sort of buffer overflow and allow them into the system.
In one case, researchers said the vulnerability was so severe that the only way to rescue a targeted iPhone would be to delete all the data off it. In another example, they said could be used to copy files off a device without requiring the owner to do anything. Apple fixed this in 12.4, but there is a 6th that is apparently not fixed yet.
Yeah.
So this is Apple's own notes about 12.4 indicate the unfixed flaw could give hackers a means to crash an app or execute commands of their own on recent iPhones, iPads, and iPod Touches if they were to discover it. Apple has not commented, but has urged users to install the new iOS version, which addresses Google's other discoveries, as well as other glitches and threats. So this is pretty typical. Project Zero at Google will discover these, will notify the manufacturer, give them 90 days to fix it. After the 90 days are up, if the fix isn't out, they will reveal it. In this case, Apple did make the deadline for those 5 flaws, but there's always others.
Yeah.
There's always more.
And this is just what happens when you're building when you're building a piece of software with more than 80 lines of code. This is
sometimes
especially exactly. Okay, I've built software with 40 lines of code that was even way more destructive than that by accident. But it's there's I think there's a part of a basic consumer technology literacy that we need to build up. One of them is that this is unfortunately normal, that software and services are fallible. There are going to be problems that cannot be found unless you have the backing of a billion-dollar corporation, $1 trillion corporation that has an entire, basically an entire corporation that's dedicated to finding bugs in their own and other people's products. If you start to go through the world thinking that so long as I haven't seen a product recall, my phone is pretty much safe, that's how you can maintain yourself as an informed consumer, as someone who is not going to get thrown off when they find out that there's been a hack involving Apple phones. You're also going to be a little bit skeptical when any company says that, like when Samsung says, "Hey, we've got this new face recognition first to market, and it's just as secure and it's perfectly secure and it's wonderful." That's when you're smart enough to be skeptical to saying, "Okay, let's wait 6 months to see if once it's out in the world, if it really is safe and secure." And when Apple puts out a big billboard bragging about their security and trying to dunk on other companies, that's with that kind of that sort of a consumer electronics literacy, consumers are smart enough to know that, okay, what we're seeing is an advertisement, and we all know how much we believe advertisements. And people, what I hate to see is people who are getting their hearts broken over this, thinking that, oh well, I think we've been deceived and we've been lied to. When no, this has always been the situation with anything that has a plastic heart and a pulse. There will be problems. There will be security issues that are going to be found. There are going to be security issues that are not going to be found. And you just have to you have to make sure you guard your heart against having too much faith in any company to keep you secure. And
we will cover all of this. I'll put in a little plug in about an hour on Security Now, because that has kept that show going for 15 years.
Where Steve
and it's getting longer and longer. Steve's got more and more to do every week. Okay, one more. This one, though, I can safely say is don't worry too much about it. It wasn't so long ago we heard that Google Assistant sends its voice recordings to contractors for review, that Amazon's Echo sends its recordings to contractors for review. That's
the news again today for the same thing, because we don't remember.
Yeah. Siri does it too, and Apple's the latest in the crosshairs. The thing that's a problem with all three of these devices is not so much when you say hey Shlomo and ask it something, is it that when it's triggered by accident. And according to Ars Technica, Siri has recorded fights between people, business deals, criminal dealings, sexual encounters, and so on. This is a leaker. There have been countless instances of recordings featuring private discussions between doctors and patients. And because that's what happens with these things. Apple's response is, fewer than 1% of activations are reviewed. We have confidentiality requirements for the contract workers who get those recordings. We listen to them in a secure environment. And frankly, this is how all of these voice assistants work. They have to work that way if you want the technology.
The fascinating thing for me is that Bloomberg reported this back in April when they reported. They had a big paragraph saying Apple also does this, blah 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 blah. Google also does this, blah 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 blah.
Nobody noticed,
but nobody reacted. But then the Guardian runs the story. They put sex in the headline, and it's after those privacy billboards that Andy mentioned.
That's the key.
And now it's like those two sex and you put up those billboards, boom.
That's the key. Anything to be worried about with this? I mean, obviously, if you don't want this to happen, you shouldn't have any of these devices.
They should they should make it opt-in. I'm loath to say Setup Buddy should get more complicated than it already is. That's the thing that you go through when you set up a new iPhone. But on the Siri page, it should say we send 1% of our conversations to human. Well, first, I don't think they should be contractors. Again, easy for me to say because I'm not in charge of hiring practices at Apple, but I don't think it should ever be done by contractors, only by actual employees of the company, because that's how you prove accountability. And if you can get humans out of all but the most extreme cases by just using all that machine learning, that's even better. Minimize the scope of what they have to do as much as possible, and then disclose it on Setup Buddy. When you set up, Yojimbo, just have a thing saying 0.1% of these are sent to humans to improve the quality of our service, and then have you hit that button so that nobody has to go digging through white papers or terms of service or anything, and they're absolutely clear about what's happening with their data. And if they don't want it, just opt them out of the analytics and keep going.
Yeah.
I also think it would be really smart for Apple to include some sort of mute Shlomo button.
There is a mute button on most Echo and Google devices.
Right on top of the speaker. It's a nice big button that you just push, and then you have this big red ring that reminds you that it's muted. And if Apple had that on all of its devices, something that's right to the forefront and it's very easy to access, even in control center, something really easy to access so that you could just, I know that I'm not going to be using my personal assistant for the next 4 hours, so I'm going to mute it. And then you can mute and unmute it as you see fit. I think that would be like a huge relief, and it would make a lot of people feel better knowing that they have more control over when that digital assistant is listening in. I have 2 HomePods in my living room that I constantly accidentally trigger. And I watch enough horror movies that when I was reading this, I thought, probably thinks that I'm a murderer because they probably hear a lot of screaming in my house all the time.
Yeah. I'm not bothered by the fact that the AI has to be backed up by human ears. The only time this becomes a really big concern is when you have stories coming out that the contractors that are being outside contractors being used for this are abusing access to these recordings. Like they have the ability to carry some of these recordings away, or they have the ability to do a little bit of freelance work and find out who is listening to this sort of stuff.
Media organizations.
Yeah, exactly. I don't. The only other problem is that once law enforcement finds out that it's possible that maybe there was an open mic in this person's house for any length of time, that they might be able to subpoena a company saying that we want any voice recordings you might have from any active assistant device that might be owned in any of the following 5 homes that are associated with our suspect or this person of interest. And that's why a company like Apple needs to be in position to say we don't have that information, because we either we destroy 99% of all the recordings we make, and the ones that we actually keep, we destroy all the identifiable information. So sorry, we will give you all the recordings we have. Here they are. Just wave your fingers saying, "Yep, there you go."
Let's see. Let's do one more and then we'll take a break. I want to talk about the 16-inch MacBook Pro and if I should wait. Rene, Ritchie.
I mean, were you planning on buying a 15-inch MacBook Pro today, Leo? I got to figure out what's at stake right now.
No, that's a good point.
Because you should definitely wait.
I always should hover my finger over the button. The rumors are getting stronger and stronger. We'd heard first from Ming-Chi Kuo, who said that Apple was buying these panels 3072 by 1920. These would be essentially 16-inch displays running in the equivalent of a 15-inch MacBook Pro bezel with the smaller bezels.
3K for 3K.
Yeah. We're now also hearing rumors that there will be a new keyboard. No more butterfly key. Is that credible?
Yeah, I mean, I think we talked about it a while ago. That was the general rumor, and several outlets I think have mentioned it, or several people have mentioned it, was that Apple was working on a new keyboard. They'd been working on it since a little time after they realized the other keyboard was non-feasible. It's been a couple of years because you can't just turn those things around. There's a lot of work that's involved in deploying a whole new keyboard, and that it was going to debut in the 16-inch MacBook. And then Ming-Chi Kuo kind of muddied the waters because he said, no, it's going to appear in a new MacBook Air. And everyone's like, but there's the MacBook Air this year is just a spec bump. And then it turned out, yeah, it's just a spec bump. So it was like super confusing. And he said it was going to come into a spec bumped MacBook next year, which sounded like the current MacBook, where everyone was hearing there was a 16-inch. And now he's come back this week and said, oh, no, ignore that last report. I don't know what I was imbibing, but it is going to be in the 16-inch MacBook Pro. And we've seen Digitimes and China Economic Daily, all with similar supply chain sourced rumors now that it's coming this fall, which is typically for Apple the October timeframe for MacBook Pros.
And also that there might be 2 new iPads at that time?
Several, which is confounding because Apple has, they put out the new iPad Pros last October, have put out the new iPad Mini and the new iPad Air. And this sounds like a 10.2-inch budget iPad update, which they updated not last year, not this year March, but last year March. So they are really up in the ante on their iPad updates.
Yeah.
June filing with the Eurasian Economic Commission, basically kind of like an FCC filing, listed 7 models. Of those, the MacBook Air, MacBook Pro.
And the Air should have the new keyboard too when they do the next update.
Those took up 4 of them, but there are 3 model numbers that were not taken yet by the July releases. So that's another piece of evidence. Maybe even that it might be sooner if they submitted it at the same time as they did the new MacBook Air and the new MacBook Escape.
It's a weird schedule because the previous budget iPads were early releases in the year. People bought them for back to school, and this is much later in the year. Yeah. And the size is different again, but they just released the new Air, so it's going to differentiate that from the Air. It's 10.2. The sizes of iPads that are extant in our galaxy right now is amazing compared. Like they were all 9.7, then 7.9 and 9.7. Now we'll have 12.9, we'll have 11, we'll have 10.5, 10.2, 9.7, 7.9. It's starting to feel like a Samsung tweet. I don't know how to feel about it.
Starting to feel like a shoe size. It's like a 9.5. I need the wide model. Yeah.
Well, I think more is always good. I'm excited, and I'm really interested in that 16-incher. But it'll be the fall. It won't be any sooner than that, I guess.
Yeah, and I'm super curious because the rumored price tag was around $3,000, which upset a lot of people because that's $600 more than the 15-inch. And you just have to remember the 17-inch was more than the 15-inch because we do like almost every vendor bases pricing on size, and we also have no idea what the specs will be on it. And Intel has some real expensive processors now that could radically change the price of the unit depending on which one they put in. But also if there's Face ID in it or if there's other technologies in it. So
that was the other rumors that they'd put Face ID in. But if you have small bezels, it's going to be hard to put in all those extras.
Google's shown you can put Face ID and add a radar into tiny bezels. That's not an issue anymore.
Yeah. It's also interesting if it really is like a MacBook Pro, a MacBook Pro squared, and they're really putting like hotter CPUs in there. That's not a problem. They're gaming CPUs that are that are the size of lunch trays that have like actually huge active fans in them. But if they have to make it just a little bit thicker to accommodate the cooling necessary for this kind of a fan
and a bigger battery, I would be happy.
It ups a whole bunch of things. It also would fall in line with them thinking that, well, we are absolutely not starved for space here, so let's put in that thicker keyboard into this model, and we'll have, and at least that way they will not have had to make any space sacrifices for the rest of the MacBook line. Right. And also, whenever you have a brand new key switch technology or any brand new thing that's in any brand new laptop, you're gonna have a whole bunch of returns in the first month and a half as you find out exactly how users can make these things fail. And when they get to the Rev B of this keyboard design, they're able to put all these new findings into the MacBook Air version of it and the MacBook Pro version of it.
I would love to see kind of a MacBook Pro. I like that notion.
Like the Pro Workflow Teams version of a MacBook Pro.
And of course, many of us miss the 17-inch MacBook, but don't miss the size.
Yeah.
So I love the idea of fitting a 16-inch screen into roughly the same size as a 15-inch. I think all of that sounds exciting and good.
I have when Apple came out with the MacBook Nothing, I have a friend who at the time his daily driver was a 17-inch MacBook Pro. When I was, as it happened, I had my loaner unit with me. he had his 17-inch, and I had to take a picture of this MacBook on top of the this tiny MacBook, and it really looked like one of those like novelty cosmetic mirrors that's shaped like a MacBook.
Yeah. I used one for years. I used the 17-inch for years.
Oh,
it was a battleship.
I loved it. Me too. I still have a 17-inch Linux machine on my at my breakfast table. That's my morning machine, and I really like the size. It's nice to have that size. So I would also think that it's not completely illogical to say to people, if you want thin and light, and we've got the MacBook Air, you're going to have a slightly less processor, you're going to have a butterfly keyboard. We have that, and I think that that's a great thing to offer. I like my MacBook Air a lot. And then if you want a more powerful machine, a Pro machine, Pro squared machine, then that's the other option. I think it's not a bad thing to offer both. I don't think that's a problem.
Their issue was the prosumer. Like they had a group of people who they knew, like there's this whole in the old days it was all these graphic intensive those were the hardcore pros, but then a bunch of new people, including founders, decided to self-identify as pros.
That's
and
right.
They figured out they could ship an awful lot of MacBook Pros that were just a little thinner and lighter. Right. And boy, did they! I mean, if you look at the results for MacBook Pros, they were stellar. But they did it at instead of adding those to the lineup or making a more powerful one on the top end, the way they made a stripped down one on the bottom end, they just alienated all those pros for a bunch of years. And it feels like this last year has been them making it up.
PC makers have been doing that for a year. They've had the executive model, for the C-level executives, is thin and light and beautiful, and they've had the power model for the guys who actually do work. And that's fine. I don't think it's a bad thing. I know Apple is.
You need the in between, Leo. You need the for the CEO who thinks he does work because he adjusts the colors on the website, and he wants the word pro, but he doesn't want the waiter, or she doesn't want the waiter.
Lisa's funny, who's our CEO and happens to be my wife. Always says, "I want the fastest one of it, whatever it is. I want the fastest one of it." And I hate to burst her bubble, but she doesn't really need the fastest one of anything.
No. See, you're misinterpreting this. It's like she's taking one for the team by saying this is a brand new model, has never been tested. It's probably going to be filled with hardware bugs and software incompatibilities. I would never inflict that upon the people working for me. Let me have all the restarts and all the battery problems and all the keyboard issues.
Yeah,
and the and the Kryptonian AI-based powered CPU. Okay, that's two.
And because she's a CEO and she's my wife and I love her and we wouldn't be anywhere as successful as we are without her, she gets the fastest one, whatever it is. She's probably going to get a Mac Pro. I wouldn't be surprised.
Because she already ordered it.
Yeah. She just got the widest screen I've ever seen in my life. I don't know. It's so wide that her Mac, in fact, I'm going to have to give her the iMac Pro, actually thinks it's two screens. It doesn't understand that this is one.
She has to watch every Twitch show at once, Leo.
Actually, that's kind of what she's doing. Yeah, she's got all sorts of stuff going. It's a very elaborate screen. So maybe she does need the fastest one.
Plus Pokemon and Harry Potter at the same time. This is amazing.
Yes, she plays. That's another thing. I look at her with wonder and awe because I can only play one game at a time. She plays both Pokemon and Harry Potter at the same time. Part of it, though, she has that Pokeball, right? Yeah. So she can get the Pokeball running, spinning the stops.
You need a wand. You need a wand in the other hand.
I'm waiting for the wand. Niantic's going to do a wand.
So good.
There are third-party manufacturers who are making special styluses.
Yeah.
Wand-shaped
they look
styluses.
Kind of
I would have bought an Elder wand if they'd had one there, but they just had Scorpius's wand.
That's silly. silly. Our show today brought to you by Hover. Speaking of buying things, somebody told me there's a .media domain. So the first thing I did is I went over to Hover. This is where I get all my domains, and I bought a bunch of .media domains. Hover is awesome. Hover is the place to register your domains because these are all my domains. I have a few because there's so little folderol involved. I just bought a bunch of Twit domains. Twit Media. Of course, I had to get Twit Media. Tech Guy Media. twit.app, twit.email, twit.network, twit.technology, twit.llc, twit.studio, twit.news, twit.show, twit.fan. There are over 400 TLDs, top-level domains. Hover has all the best TLDs to choose from when building your brand online. No matter what you want to build, there's a domain name waiting for it. I'm so glad we've gotten past the old .com, .net metaphor. It's, we've had twit.tv for a long time, and I think when we first got it, we had to explain it. Not anymore, though. I'm really happy to say it's really great. We can use these domains, twit.ninja, twit.pizza. Whatever your needs are, Hover is the place. First of all, no upsell. It's not 18 pages of crap you don't want to buy before you get your domain. You can get it fast and easy. Who is privacy is automatic. They know you want that, so that's automatic. That's just built in. The best tech support anywhere. They're there to answer questions, not upsell you. And I can't say that that's the case everywhere else. Oh, yeah, .global now. .global. It's their big sale on .global, 74% off. I forgot to get twit.global. So many great I visit all the time because I get ideas for new domain names. A very clean, easy to navigate UI, and I love this. If you're watching the video, they have one button, connect your name to all of the different things you use, Squarespace and WordPress and Twitter and GitHub and all of that stuff. So it makes it very easy for you to get a domain. And this is my recommendation. Get a domain name from an independent registrar that just does that. They don't do web hosting. They just do domain names. And then get your web hosting from another company. That way, if you decide to move companies, you don't have to worry about it because the Hover has the domain name and it keeps it safe for you. It's really important to keep your domain name separate from your hosting. And it's hard if you do it with the hosting to move it out of there. Hover is kind of as clean and easy and simple to use as Apple, as anywhere that it's just really great. I love it. And incidentally, domain name management, it couldn't be simpler because I am always going into my DNS settings and modifying them and changing them. And if that's something you do, you'll love the interface. Make a name for yourself with Hover. Go to hover.com/twit. Get your first 10% off your first purchase of any domain extension for the whole first year. Hey, Twit Network fans. That's hover.com/twit. 10% off for a full year just as a way of saying thank you. And I thank you for using that special address because that way they know you saw it here. Hover.com/twit. Find a domain for your great ideas. First step in starting your new business, your new idea, your new website. And they've got all the extensions. Man, I should have gotten global. Let's see if I can get leo.global. $15. That's such a great deal. On we go with the show. Where's the credit card? I want my credit card.
Where is it?
Wasn't it supposed to come out with iOS 12.4?
That's
the software did. You're waiting on the hardware.
What's the hardware? It's a piece of titanium. I loved the story. Again, Mark Gurman, Bloomberg. He says Apple took the design of the card and the design of the app and let Goldman do the rest. That's how it should be. I think I will get one as soon as I can. I know people have them. Apple employees have them and have been using them. I think they're getting very close. Goldman Sachs will, of course, be running the back end. This is the card that has 1% cash back for purchases with the credit card, 2% cash back for purchases with Apple Pay, and 3% for purchases of Apple products or services. It is really, and Gurman points this out, really intended to get you to use Apple Pay. Sure, there's a card.
So much money back, Leo. You're gonna get so much money. You and Alex. Will
I love Apple Pay. I love Apple Pay. I mean, others have pointed out, okay, sure, but I think it was the Target card has 4%. So if you bought your MacBook at Target instead, you'd get more back than getting it from Apple. Okay, fine, but it's not a titanium card.
You're not going to impress a first date with your Target card.
And more importantly, the privacy aspects of this. It's the same privacy as Apple Pay, right?
And the behavioral stuff, like it's basically Apple Health for your financial, financial health built into the app. Like pay down this debt, do this. If you make these payments, keep this under this way. This is not much you're spending on this. Did you really need that third piece of lasagna? I mean, it's going to be great.
I hope they don't do that. All Apple said is this summer, but everybody feels like the 12.4 added the wallet capability. Yeah. I think now, remember we talked about 12.4 fixing those flaws. I think it may be that Apple wasn't planning on reaching 12.4 until the card was ready, but said, well, you know what, we got to get this out now because of those fixes. Is that credible?
Could be.
That makes sense.
That makes sense.
Predictions for the card, anybody? Lory, when do you think it's going to be?
I think it's going to be... let me look at my calendar. It's going to be on a Thursday. It'll be...
I love this.
It'll be Thursday, August 8th.
Thursday, August 8th. Can we start the pool now? All right.
Just after the show? Like they'll just do it right after the show? Isn't that the usual modus operandi?
Yeah, that's right. Well, the quarterly results today, they don't want to scoop that. Or maybe they do.
Depending on how bad it is.
Tim will just say an Apple Card is available now, and then everybody will run.
That's the headline, right?
Munster won't ask a question.
Maybe that's it. What do you think, Rene? August 8th sounds pretty credible.
I think, yeah, or if Leo, if you were to apply for any other card right now, the rest of us would get Apple Pay so much faster. Apple Card, I mean, so much
holding
faster.
off. I want my Apple Card. How about you, Andy? Any prediction? It's a silly thing, but
if this is the Price is Right, I'd have to bid August 9th.
Yes,
because that way with $1 over, yeah. Unless Lory won the $500 bonus, which she'd be entitled to. It seems like I feel as though they definitely are going to want to have it in operation at least a month before their September announcements, because they're going to want people to try out their new Apple Cards on their new hardware. They're not going to want to have people like put that on their Discover card or, God forbid, PayPal. I think mid-August is definitely a good bet.
Yeah.
The creator of the Xbox, Nat Brown, has joined Apple, but his resume is a lot more than just Xbox. He was at Valve and did VR for Valve. So is that the Vive, the HTC Vive that Valve is in partnership with?
Valve worked, but now they have the...
they have their own now.
The really weirdly named one,
yeah. He says in a tweet...
Index, right? The Valve Index?
The Index, that's it. He says in a tweet thread announcing his move to Apple, I was always fascinated with how hard games push software and hardware platforms in UI and UX, in memory and storage and network requirements, real-time rendering, low latency input, audio quality, and multimedia generally. I don't know where the connective tissue is. Systems engineering, where you tune and improve the hardware, services, software for developers. I love helping teams across disciplines understand complex end-to-end requirements through concrete examples. Basically, he says, a major thread of my career is an obsession with platform ecosystems and systems engineering. So apparently he's going to...
This is why, last week when the guy who did the HoloLens left Apple and everyone said, oh, Apple's canceling all their plans. And no, they're not. And now they hired Nat. And you're like, seriously, you could have taken a deep breath back then, Chuckles.
Yeah. Who knows, though? It might be, you just don't know. I mean, this is clearly a guy with a lot of skills. A lot of interests. He could be working on VR or AR, or he could be working on the iPhone for all we know. I mean...
or could be working on something wonderfully cross-disciplinary.
Right. Smart. You know what? Apple hires smart people and then lets them do things that are interesting. So... have we been playing with... have you played with the new Beta 5 of iOS 13, Rene? Are you on the developer beta?
Yes.
What do you anything to report?
Yeah, you can change the amount and size of the icons on your iPad screen, which is something I never knew and wanted to do until I did it.
Wait a minute. What? Now this goes along with this. So this is iPadOS. This goes along with that new screen because it is true that because they're jamming more now on the home screen, the icons are smaller. So you can make them bigger.
Yeah, you can go into settings and you can change the size. You can change the size of your grid, Leo.
Oh,
so you can have
that's great.
Fewer, bigger, or more smaller.
So that's something I do regularly on Android. The Android launchers, not Google's, but the Android launchers I use, I'm using Action Launcher right now, will let you say how big the icons are, will let you say the grid size, the width, the height. I actually, one of the things I love to do, and I would love to see Apple do this, I take the text labels off because that takes up useless space. So I take the text labels off, so I just have icons on my Android phone. That would be nice. This is all to make Springboard a little bit more customizable.
I think they're also still experimenting with this stuff, and they're using the beta period as a way to sort of roll out these features and test them with us and get our feedback. And
yeah. Okay. The problem with this, of course, is you can get unaesthetic results. But Apple looks like they're only really giving you an on or off switch. So it's not, you get two sizes, more or bigger.
Yeah, it's funny because in some ways, Google's lack of adhering to specific guidelines has forced developers and designers especially to be like, not so grand. Like, we don't have to be pixel perfect anymore. And that's something that iOS designers, I think, are still, what do you mean it's not going to be on the pixel grid? No, I crafted this as a 48 icon. If you show it at 46, I will come to your house and cut you. And you're slowly learning that they have to, as all the different screen sizes and implementations, and now you have all these different window placements and options. I think we're slowly easing out of the painfully out of the pixel perfect era.
If you are interested in augmented reality, you can go to the Apple Store. There are 3 new Today at Apple sessions focused on AR. They call them ART.
Art. Do you get it, Leo? Art.
Apple. Interactive. So wait a minute. They'll be available at Apple Store retail locations around the world. Include interactive walks. So it isn't for making AR. It's for playing with AR. In-store educational sessions using Swift Playgrounds. I guess that's for making AR. And an ART installation in every store. So get to your Apple Store. To create sessions, Apple invited the New Museum, a leading destination for contemporary art in New York, to select 7 artists: Nick Cave, Natalie Gerberg, Hansberg, Kaufei, John Giorno, and Karsten Holler, and Piplotti Rist to participate in an experimental project that's free to the public. Oh, I'm going to have to go down to the Apple Store and look at that. And that's at every Apple Store. That's nice. This
is going on. Ming-Chi Kuo in his rumors also said that Apple wants to get to 5G so they can have much more ubiquitous, low latency AR, augmented reality, outside of the constraints of Wi-Fi. And it's almost like they're still working on AR projects. It's amazing.
There will be, the experimental walks will only be in some cities: San Francisco, New York, London, Paris, Hong Kong, and Tokyo. You'll walk around in a group with an Apple genius who will say, "Oh, look over there at that building. There's a giant thing on it." Yikes. That's cool. Interesting, I guess.
See, we all do this with Pokemon and Harry Potter, Leo, but the mainstream isn't, especially the different facets of the mainstream aren't into VR, AR gaming, aren't as familiar with it, but this will sort of ease them into it because it's art.
There's so much more to shooting up heroin than what you might have seen on TV shows. By getting the people on board with the onboarding process for this new habit. Okay, sorry.
Andy. This will all come to your Apple Store August 10th, 2 days after the Apple Card comes out. No, I'm making that up.
I have seen the best minds in my generation corrupted by.
No, but it's an interesting question, because let's say in a theoretical universe, 5 years from now, we're all walking around, or even just 2 years from now, we have Apple glasses on our face. What's the compelling use case for that? We've seen some early prototypes that just show you messages or show you maps, but maps isn't really a killer feature. So we still have to figure out what is it that we need to be in our eyes all the time. What'll make that worthwhile putting up with the short-term pain and long-term changes in society. And some of this stuff, as silly as it sounds, is just getting us and letting us experiment with all this AR stuff before we have any actual products for it.
Yeah. That's why Google Glass. I was having a discussion with some friends on Twitter about it, and one of my really good friends thought that counter to my argument that the gold Apple Watch was one of the dumbest things ever to be released as a tech product. He said, no, it's Google Glass. It was pointless. It was stupid, and would.
That's a list that goes on and on. There's a lot of competitors on the dumbest tech product ever.
Yeah. But I was saying, well, no, it was because Google always marked it as it's an experiment. You can't just like order one and get it until like they gave up on it and had extras left over. And it was like, we don't know what people are going to use this for until the sort of people who are so excited about this technology they're willing to wait on a wait list and then spend $1,200 to $1,500 for it, you wear it, and then tell us what the experience is like. And so, yeah, I think we're still going to see another couple of waves of releases before we figure out exactly what people want it for. And if Google ever actually gives us that anime fox that simply walks delicately on little black paws ahead of us, turning left and right to show us exactly where we need to go in order to get to our destination, I will have considered this a life worth living. I will be very pleased to be. Well, there are pluses and minuses to being around in 2019, but that will definitely be one of the pluses.
Apple's filed for a trademark. Oddly enough, Lovefrom Jony. Just as Jony Ive leaves Apple, they're trademarking Love. This is, to me, a very intriguing story. Like, what are they thinking? Are they going to sell a product? Or I don't know.
Are you sure Apple?
Oh, maybe it wasn't Apple.
Apple trademarked?
Oh, Jony Ive filed for the trademark Lovefrom Jony.
Does this mean Mark gets love from Mark? Like, are they going to have their own trademarks?
Lovefrom is the name of the new company.
Yeah. So will they get their own sub-brand?
The trademark is Love. I thought it was Apple. I misread that.
If you think about that would have been a real jerk move.
It would have.
after all that. Oh, we're looking forward to. Oh, by the way, we just
trademarked
every
his
domain name.
Or it would have blown a lot of stagecraft. Lovefrom is not really an Apple venture. Oh, sorry, we didn't.
So Lovefrom is the company. Lovefrom Jony's the trademark. Forget Mark Newsom.
I'm wondering, is there a love from Mark? Have we invested?
Maybe.
Mac
we don't know.
Get on that.
And Huawei smartphone sales, you'd think they would have gone down after being banned from the United States. According to Canalys, Huawei's Q2 smartphone sales rose 31% in China. And actually, we'd heard some stories that this was a kind of a patriotic move on the part of the Chinese buyer.
Did they ever sell much in the U.S.? I can't remember them ever selling that much in the U.S.
Yeah. They rose 23% worldwide.
Okay, but 31% in China. 37.3 million units in the quarter. Now, I bet you Apple in this down quarter will have sold more iPhones than that, but I don't know. Maybe not. How many a quarter does Apple sell? 20 million?
A lot, but I don't know if in an off quarter, I don't know if they sell that many.
Yeah. 30, that's good. 31%. Anyway, there's a patriotic move afoot to buy Chinese.
Yeah. Remember, in China, censorship and lack of privacy is not a bug; it's a feature. It's a state-required feature.
We're about 15 minutes off from Apple's. Well, no, half an hour. I didn't mean to scare you. Sorry, Lory. Half an hour.
Well, people need to pee.
Yeah, they got to get some lunch. Maybe fortify themselves with a quick shot of something before the Apple
whiskey,
whatever helps you type faster. So let's take a break and go to our.
Leo, Apple sold 41 million iPhones in this quarter in 2017.
There you go. So it sounds like a lot until you look at Apple. That's amazing what Apple sells. It's incredible.
But the other thing we never know is what margins the other companies are making, because in a lot of areas of consumer electronics, companies have seized massive amounts of market share by selling at like 1% or at 0 or at minus 1%. Right. And Apple's doing it at like 35%.
Apple's making enough money.
Well, but again, playing devil's advocate, other phone makers have to actually compete with other phone makers, whereas Apple always has the power to say, oh, you think that's too much to spend on, or we're not making a phone that you want? Okay, that's fine. Switch to Android. Switch to Windows.
Well, that's true,
phone.
Except for Palm famously sold Centro at below cost to make it up on volume, and that almost destroyed them.
Oh yeah.
I don't know. Go ahead.
I'm just saying that sometimes the smaller margins of the competitors isn't like we're trying to make it up for volume. It's like, no, we have to.
That's what we have to charge.
We have to do because they're Yeah, because like look at the OnePlus, which is just totally like, oh wow, that's actually a superb phone that's almost pretty much as good as any other phone on the market that costs $900 to $1,000. Only doesn't cost $900 to $1,000, does it? And it really drives Google to say, tell you what, that Pixel 3 phone we had, we can probably find a way to manufacture it for less money and actually start getting people to buy it for $500 instead of $900.
Oh, I'm sorry. You caught me. I was ordering lunch. It's time for lunch. It's time for DoorDash. Let me see here. Maybe a burrito bowl from Chipotle, a delicious Wendy's burger. We got the Habit Burger down the street. Or I could just do it and have ice cream. Baskin & Robbins will be here in 28 minutes. DoorDash is awesome. It brings the best restaurants in your city to your door. You love to cook, but you're not in the mood to do the dishes tonight? You're stuck at work, and you just have to have something special? Well, get it delivered with DoorDash. DoorDash makes ordering easy. You just use the app. I'm on it right here. And by the way, not only does it include your national chains, your favorites like Subway and Baskin & Robbins, but it also features all the the best restaurants in your town. So I could get Kabuki Sushi or Everest Indian Restaurant, the Boulevard Cafe, Ulia's Delicatessen. Oh, some good pizza here. Alfredo's best. Oh, Mi Pueblo. Oh, my mouth is watering. New Yorker, that's my favorite pizza. Lala's Creamery. Oh, Lala's. It's Petaluma homemade ice cream. And I can get it delivered to my door with DoorDash. 310,000 amazing restaurants connecting you with door-to-door delivery in over 3,300 cities, all 50 states, and yes, Rene, even in Canada.
Woohoo!
Don't worry about dinner. Let dinner come to you with DoorDash, and I always love my Dasher. I love my Dashers. I give them hugs and tips. Right now, our listeners they like the tips better, I'm surprised to say. Our listeners get $5 off their first order of $15 or more when you download the DoorDash app and enter the promo code MacBreak. Come on, you know you want to. You know you're hungry. You want a little, a little enchilada from Taco Bell or, the cheesesteak shop, or maybe just a pint of my favorite Baskin Robbins. How about a Big Mac? I could have it here in half an hour. DoorDash. Go to their app. Go to the App Store. Download their app. Enter the promo code MacBreak on your first order of $15 or more, and you will save $5. Lunch is on me and DoorDash. My Dasher will be here soon. DoorDash. Don't forget the offer code MacBreak for $5 off your first order of 15 or more. Everybody should download it and see if DoorDash is available in your community. I got this from my mom, because she was complaining. She had some other app. I think that app went out of business. Then when I got another app, she said, they don't have my favorite restaurants. DoorDash did. And what I did, and this is a great thing to do for if you have older parents. Mom doesn't cook anymore. She's 86. She's kind of, it's hard for her to cook. But I want to make sure that she's eating right and eating whenever she wants. So I set up DoorDash on her phone. I put my credit card in there. I said, Mom, anytime, let me buy you dinner. Just go to DoorDash and order the dinner. And she does it at least a couple of times a week, and I just think that's the greatest thing. I thank you, DoorDash, for letting me do that. In fact, it works so well for my mom. Lisa set that up for her parents, too, our in-laws, because their favorite Alfredo's is on it. Delicious. Delivered. DoorDash. Andy Ihnatko, I'd like a pick of the week from you, my friend.
Mine is a frivolous toy, but it is Mac related. The company Classic Bot, they're toy designers out of Hong Kong, and they make these beautiful like minifig versions of the classic Mac and now the Bondi Blue iMac. And they're about the size of a lemon. They're not like tiny little things. They've got magnetic posable like arms and legs. The classic Mac comes with a Font DA mover suitcase and the original mouse.
This is so cute.
Yeah,
Alex Gumpel had a few of these. I think they were really great. I really
they've been out for a while, but I only discovered them like a couple of weeks ago. I ordered when it hasn't arrived yet, but I had to order.
I love it that it's carrying the font suitcase. That cracks me up.
Yeah, and also if you already have a few like action figures or like collectible like mini figurine sculptures. I just want the classic Mac to be able to, play with my Captain America and play with my Tigra and play with my Iron Man, and that's be their own superhero team together, like a Marvel team up. Like Catwoman and the black classic bot. I think they could go on adventures together.
They feel like they should, don't they? Show my screen, Karsten. This is the one with the Mac Classic with the font
great.
suitcase. It's so cute, and a little mouse. So cute. They're
Your
not
Star Wars action figures can use computers now.
They're not completely cheap. $31, but that's inexpensive enough that you could have a few on your.
But also, unfortunately, there's nothing to show scale. It's not. You think that it might be like something that comes out of a gumball machine, but it's yay big, and so you can actually like. They do interact very, very well, I think, with your action figures and other parts of your puppet land playhouse.
Here's the Susan Kerr classic Mac icons: the mail, error, trash, folder, and disk. I love that set. That is really cool. And
please someone make a stop motion animation with all these things and then post links to them.
Oh, here's a trash bot pin.
Oh, I'm definitely getting that.
Or how about this? This pin.
Cute.
This would be good.
Yes.
Save it. It's a floppy disk. The kids will look at that and go,
kids.
What is that? What is that? Save it. I know that. Oh, it's the save icon, of course.
The bomb is my bomb.
Classicbot.com. Good pick. Lory, what do you have for us?
Too cute. I'm buying my enamel pins right now.
All right. You want me to? Here, I'll go to Rene instead. Well, you can buy some pins. Rene, Ritchie, your pick of the week. Do you have this?
So, the bots?
No.
Do I have the pick of the week? Absolutely.
Yes. This is. We were just talking about this actually. This is the movie that was so long that you had to plan your pee breaks.
Well, I mean, it's not Harry Potter and the Cursed Child long, but it is long. True confession, I didn't like it the first time that I saw it because Avengers: Infinity War is one of my favorite movies of all time. And I went into this movie expecting that, even though they told me not to. Even though they said it's not Infinity War Part 2, we deliberately made that decision. It's a very different movie. I went in expecting to have Infinity War Part 2, and I didn't get it. I got something very different, and that difference in expectation made me not really like it. But then I thought about it. I went back and watched it a second time. It is by far not my favorite Marvel movie. There is a bunch of Marvel movies I would rank way higher than this, just subjectively. But what Marvel's and Kevin Feige and that whole team specifically has managed to accomplish through like 11 years and 22 movies is just unprecedented. And whether you like some of them, all of them, none of them, just the amount of work in a Hollywood studio system dealing with Hollywood actors and agents and production schedules and studios and executives. It is hard enough to get a sequel made, or never mind like the first movie made, but to get a quasi-cohesive universe of all these movies. And then I just watched the director's commentary, and I was one of those people, I would left the movie like, why didn't they just do this? They could have done that. And in the director's commentary, which I often prefer to the movies that I watch because I'm a real geek about making of stuff, they said, well, we could have done, my brilliant idea, but it didn't pay off for these or those reasons or conflicted with this or that. I'm like, okay, that's all fair. But it really does, if you go back and track the early movies and the journeys of all these characters, it pays off so many things in so many ways, and it has all the fan service and the little things that only people who've read the comics for 30 years would get, but it also has the jokes that mainstream audiences like. And you may not ultimately agree with every decision they made, but almost every character gets that moment that shows a diametric opposition to where they started from in the Marvel universe. And I just think putting this all together, yes, it's 3 hours, and they could have arguably trimmed it down, but they pay off so much that, especially if you've watched other movies along the way, this is just a beautiful poetic ending.
I've only seen at best half of these. I want to buy all 22 in a bundle and then watch them all. When can I do that?
And the other thing that's such a challenge is they get like Ant-Man, which is...
Wouldn't that be awesome?
They get like Guardians and Ant-Man, which are goofy movies in there with like the super serious characters. And it just, the actors are so good. Like Paul Rudd and all the actors are so good. It just works. So it's a terrific good time, especially if you watch all the extras, which has some
I'm
fun
going to
stuff
watch all 22 in order.
And not as a major spoiler, but there's like deleted scenes where like Rocket is going, "Oh, you fought the Chitauri. How long did that take you?" And they're like, "Oh, 2-3 hours." Like, what? They're the worst army in the world. You just blew up their command ship and they all fall down. Didn't you know that? Everybody knows that. And they sort of make fun of the bad decisions that they made along the way, which I thought was delightful.
That's good.
Yeah.
All right. I have no.
So you really do have to watch all 22 movies.
Yeah,
to
I have
get
no
into-
grounding in this universe at all.
You don't have to, but you'll get more payoff.
I know even less about Marvel comics than I do about Pokemon, so I'm really at a loss here. Maybe I need to. Would you do this for me, Rene? Prescribe a reading and watching regimen.
I did this for Lory. I have the list. I did this for Lory when we were together at Dub Dub.
And how did
I
it work,
asked him
Lory?
Well, I think I've seen 2 of the ones on the list that he gave me so far. So it's working. I'm getting there. It's
a long haul. It's kind of like a 4-year degree.
And I will add that when you get towards the climax of this movie, you see things on screen that every 5-year-old comic book fan has waited their entire lives, never believing that they would see.
That's why I don't want to spoil it. That's why I need to do the whole thing. It's like the Harry Potter show you saw. You finally saw The Cursed Child on Broadway. That's a 6-hour, 2-part Broadway show that requires a deep knowledge and understanding of the Harry Potter universe.
Even Deathly Hallows, like if you really want to appreciate Deathly Hallows, you have to go along for the ride. Otherwise, you don't understand all the mythos and meaning.
Yeah. So I understand that, and I would like to be a participant in the Marvel Comic Universe. Is this the last Marvel Comic Universe movie? Is that
No, but everything they've had Spider-Man Homecoming, Far From Home since then, which is sort of a codicil to this because it deals with all the fallout of this. But everything from now is going to be sort of a fresh beginning.
Is there a reboot?
Be handing off to no, they're just when they had a big announcement at Comic-Con where they announced the next slate of movies and they're doing Disney Plus TV shows with the actors from the movies. Like it's Tom Hiddleston, like it's the guy who played Loki, the guy who played Hawkeye, the people who played Wanda and Vision are all doing TV shows where they sort of hand things over to the comic book next generation, which will be interesting too. But it'll be a fresh
resend me what you sent, Lory, because I have some work to do.
I'll do that.
You got some movies to watch.
I got some movies
I think
to
I'm
watch.
where you are. I think I've watched probably not even half of them.
Yeah.
So I know what you mean.
But I'll just add this as an ending. When I was watching the end of this movie in a movie theater, my godson looked up at me and said, "What is wrong with you?" And I said, "You don't understand how long I waited to see this."
Wait, were you crying?
It was worse than crying, Leo. It was like I was having a complete nerd breakdown. It's just like the only way I can describe it is like when you first saw The Matrix and you first saw Lord of the Rings when they did the massive technology. It was things I had never seen on screen before.
Yeah.
And this, I'd seen the special effects on screen before, but these were my mythology, the mythology that I grew up with as a kid. Finally presented as like what my imagination saw.
No, I understand. Yeah, no, I completely understand. It's like there were moments in Game of Thrones where something that had happened 5 seasons ago got resolved, and I'm going, "Oh my God!" And Lisa's saying, "What?" And I said, "Well, yeah, you just can't explain it."
Even like Justice League, for as many production problems as it had and issues that people have with it, when you see them all together and you hear those chords from John Williams, like you are instantly 5 years old.
See,
again.
I envy you. I wish I had read all those comics and seen all those shows. I envy you.
Or like when you watch All-Star Superman, it's like if you know Superman, that just is a transformative experience.
Yes, that's big payoff. Yep. Lory, have you ordered your ceramic pins, your classic bots? Are you ready to do?
I'm ready. Yeah.
Okay. Our pick of the week from Lory Gill. No.
They were so cute. I had to get them.
I do that on this show all the time.
I'm doing it now.
I buy stuff all the time on this show.
So, you may have noticed that I'm back in my own environment again.
Yay!
And
Welcome home.
They finally put the roof back on.
Yay!
And in addition to a new roof, we got a new thermostat. We got the Ecobee 5.
Oh.
And so I wanted to drop that one in there. I have never had a smart thermostat. This is my first one, so I don't have anything to compare it to. I'm not saying it's better than X, Y, and Z, but I'm definitely saying I absolutely love having it. And the Ecobee, I keep thinking Ecobee, but it's definitely
I think it's Ecobee. Yeah.
Ecobee 5 is great. It has voice assistant, which I actually didn't turn on because I think it's it's not for iPhone voice assistant. But you can't, if you use Amazon's virtual assistant, it supports that. It was so easy to set up. I literally did it myself. I didn't have to, have an electrician come out and do it.
But let me ask you, do you have that wire, the control wire in your setup?
Because our house was re-roofed, my landlord actually put in a brand new air conditioner because the old one was 30 years old. Yeah. So I asked him specifically to grab a 5-wire and run that. And so, yes, luckily mine had that.
If you have that, all of these things are relatively easy to install. If you don't have it, it's a big pain in the butt. So.
Well, the Ecobee 5 comes with, and maybe the 4 does too, it comes with a little
a wireless
adapter
module.
So that if you don't have that, you connect this adapter into those wires, and then you use the adapter instead of the wires.
Oh.
So it is a little more complicated, but not by a lot. It's actually pretty. You don't need. I would say even if you don't have the common wire, that's the wire that not every
common
thermostat
wires.
has.
Yeah,
even if you don't have that, the adapter that just comes with I still have it because I didn't need it. So the adapter that comes with the packaging, you have to cut a larger hole in your wall because it's about yay big, and you shove that into the wall. And
it's bigger than your existing backplate. You have to put a hole. In there.
It's like the
I see, for the remote unit. Yeah.
So the hole that I had was just big enough to fit just your regular cable wire. So if you were going to use the adapter, it's about this big, so you have to shove it through that. And it's hidden in the wall. It doesn't show or anything like that. And that thing becomes your new version of the 5-wire that has the common wire on it. So
the common wire gives you power. So without that, these powered thermostats won't work.
They don't work.
Yeah. But you can use the adapters and you put batteries in the adapter, I presume, to give it power.
I don't even have it in front of me to know for sure, but I'm going to say yes.
Yeah. Good. And you control your air conditioning and your heating.
Absolutely. And it's the greatest thing you can set. It comes with so much, but yes, for one thing, you can use it supports HomeKit. So you can use your iPhone voice assistant from your phone to adjust the temperature. You can also set schedules throughout the day of when you want it to be different temperatures or on or off. We have peak pricing here in Sacramento, so I make sure that the air conditioner isn't running during those peak times. You can set a threshold of if it gets to be a certain cold or it gets to be a certain hot, it will trigger. And then you can manually set them. You can set things for while you're on vacation, and you can keep an eye on it from your iPhone while you're out and about. Turn it on while you're out, which I love. If I'm out of the house and forgot to turn it on, and I know I'm going to be either cold or hot when I get home, I can make sure that that's on for me. So I am all about a smart thermostat. And after I've had it for a couple of months, I'll tell you how well it works with keeping my energy bill down too.
Yeah. I think it's kind of cool. I had the original Nest thermostat and never reinstalled it when we moved. It was like, okay, fine, I can live without it. But then I found out we don't have a common wire, so I can't. It's a pain in the butt to do these. Someday I'll get together and do it. You're lucky you got all this set up. I think it's really great.
Yeah,
it's really great to have that. And then it's nice to say turn on like that right now. It'd be nice before we go home to turn on the AC. So it's a little cooler when we get home. Ecobee 5, your pick of the week. I was going to make my pick of the week the fact that I thought I'd steal a little something from Lory and make the fact that iTunes was going to offer the entire tools collection in a couple of weeks. But then I thought, I don't know anything about music, so I probably shouldn't make that my pick of the week. I do have a pick of the week, though, thanks to Karsten, who wants us to remind everybody the Vintage Computer Festival West is coming up. Yay, August 3rd and 4th at the Computer History Museum. The Vintage Computer Federation is a user group for people who collect historic computers. And you can go to the Computer History Museum in Mountain View Saturday from 9 to 6 and Sunday from 9 to 5:30 and see 10 or more Apple Ones up, and several of them up and running, They're going to be celebrating the 50th anniversary of the moon landing with a restored Apollo guidance computer.
Oh, by the way, there is a great series of YouTube videos about the restoration of this Apollo guidance computer using the original software, which they had. They're going to museums and they have to write all of this brand new software just to extract the data from like these data ropes. And a lot of the circuitry is it's not designed to be. It's a pioneering Apple product because it was never designed to be repaired by anybody. It's like it's fully podded, so they have to take X-rays of it to route out where are these wires going, and if there's a break in a wire. It is the nerdiest, most fulfilling series of restoration videos I've ever seen, and you will be so happy to see how hard these people are working and how good they are at just getting this thing up and running again. Stuff that was bought as a box of an odd job lot of NASA stuff at an auction in 1974, 1975, and it's a complete Apollo guidance, nearly complete Apollo guidance computer.
This was a project of the Computer History Museum, which is a great thing, a wonderful thing to find out more about. They also will have Commodore 128 chief designer Bill Hurd lecturing on how to understand and fix the effects of aging and heat on electric components. So, wow, this is for the hardcore nerd, and this sounds like so much fun this weekend at the Computer History Museum. The Vintage Computer Festival West. Thank you, Carson, for pointing that out. I'm really glad to give them a plug and mention this. The Midwest Vintage Computer Festival is in September. You can find out more about that at vcfed.org. vcfed.org, the Vintage Computer Federation. And yes, the entire Tools collection will be on iTunes. Is that good music? I don't know. Is it classical? Is it like Bach? I don't know.
I am not going to make any enemies, so I'm not going to say anything.
You don't like it.
I said I'm not going to say anything.
Interesting. Okay. We'll play some. If we got Jim Dalrymple on, I'm sure he'd want to recommend them. Thank you, everybody, for being here. We do MacBreak Weekly every Tuesday right after iOS Today. You can make the whole day your kind of an Apple day if you stop by twit.tv/live. Usually MacBreak Weekly is around 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern Time, 1700 UTC, but that time varies depending on how long and how late Leo is with iOS Today. If you want to watch it live, you should also be in the chat room at irc.twit.tv. They're there 24/7 chatting along with the shows. You can also join us in studio. I had some visitors today from Texas and Spokane. So that was nice from people all around the area. If you want to come visit, just email tickets at twit.tv. If you're going to be in the Northern California area during our show, you can come and watch. We also have on-demand versions of the show and every show we do at our website. In this case, it's twit.tv/mbw. Or subscribe. Use your favorite podcast application. Subscribe. That way you'll get every copy the minute it's available. Thanks for joining us, everybody. But now I'm sorry to say it's time to get back to work because break time is over. Bye-bye.